WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us today. We Should Know is on the air. I'm your host, J.W. Simmons. We come to you every Tuesday at 2:30 on Star Communications Channel 16, WCLN Radio. There's also a replay of this show Tuesday, Thursday at 7 p.m., Channel 16, Star TV. I have a lot of folks email us at weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. Please continue to do that. Our guest today is Joey Leggett. Joey, you're CEO of Falcon's Children's Home. The name Falcon's Children's Home and Joey Leggett has become synonymous over the past years. One of the things I want to kind of open with this morning and kind of help us understand a lot about it, but the reality is when I look back at 1909, we're talking over 110 years in history that children's home has been in operation. And you picked this thing up as CEO and superintendent back in 2007, October 2007.
I was a young man back then.
A young man, Joey?
A younger man.
Let's start this conversation this morning a little bit about what was that driving force, because you were managing an operation here in Clinton with Mary Grand. You had a background in that area. This was a huge step for you and your family. What was the draw for you? Just kind of touch on that for us, and then I want to talk about the things you do up there.
Well, I had lived in Sampson County for almost 20 years at that point. This was home to me. Though I was raised in Falcon, that's where my father was a pastor there. Mm-hmm. But I was the administrator at Mary Grand Nursing Center. I had worked with nursing homes for the past 13 years and was satisfied. We built a house at Timberlake, lived out there, and just enjoyed, my boys enjoyed the school here. My wife was from here, and I thought this is where I was going to be. But I went to a wedding down in Falcon they were having, and someone asked me, he said, "Has the bishop spoke to you?" And I'm not a minister, so I said, "Why would the bishop want to speak to me?" Well, he was chairman of the Children's Home Board, and they said, "Your name's being thrown around as a possible candidate for Falcon Children's Home." And I thought that was sort of weird, but I had been a social worker here in Sampson County many years ago, worked under Mary Margaret Hobbs, and she taught me a lot. Also, I was a probation officer, worked with juvenile probation some under Jimmy Thornton, again, a good friend of mine. So, and then running a nursing home had similar type of regulations and standards and state regulations to go by, has a children's home. So I said, well, maybe there's something in this. But I didn't want to leave. I was happy, and I remember going home and telling my wife she didn't want to leave. And I remember calling my father, who was the bishop that time of the Holy International Pentecostal Church. He lived in Oklahoma City. And I said, "Dad, have you heard anything about my name being as a possible candidate to run Falcon Children's Home?" And he said, "Why, what have you heard?" Well, I knew they were talking about it. But anyway, long story short there, JW, I was content, but I am a person of faith. And a lot of times when you think you're content, God can kind of rattle your cage. So I researched a little bit further and realized the children's home was having difficulty getting children. They had gone from having about 70, 80 children down to 14 or 15 children. They were about to close the doors. And I really just felt there was a tugging at me that I could do something. I don't know what I could do, but I just felt this pulling at me that maybe it was a time for me to see if I could tackle this. What would be, now I look back on it thinking how crazy I was to leave what I had for that. But it was, again, it was sort of a pulling at me and say, I can make a difference. I just want to make a difference. And I remember coming back one time and speaking to a Rotary Club here in Clinton, and that I was a member of, and they were asking me, said, you know, what made you make this decision? You're driving 30 miles every day from Clinton to Falcon. You took a cut in pay to go there, not say anything that I've sacrificed, but all these different things. And I said, guys, I can't explain to you what it feels like to wake up in the morning, my feet hit the floor. I know that perhaps today be the day I can make a difference in a child's life. So there was a tugging there, and something pulled me to make a difference. And I really have been very fortunate and blessed, I feel like, to work at Falcon Children's Home for the last 13 years now.
This decision, again, as you just pointed out, was one of those decisions that you felt led to do this. But the challenge for me when I look at not only the legacy and the history of Falcon, and I look at what you do, describe for us when you sat in that seat, and just kind of, if you can look back at that first 2 or 3 months, what did you see and versus what you anticipated what was the real war? It's kind of like going in a pool of water. You know, everybody says, well, it's warm, the water's warm, and all of a sudden you put your foot in it, it might get a whole different flavor. So what did you see? What did you actually see versus what you were anticipating?
Well, I've always been a person of trying to see the big picture. I've always tried to envision what it can be rather than what you see in front of you. So I thought that Falcon could be doing more than what they were doing. I felt like that perhaps they were kind of stuck in the times of how Falcon had always operated. So I felt like I could come in there and perhaps with my experience of being a social worker, working with a probation office, and then the management experience and all I had running Mary Grand Nursing Center, that I could bring something to the table. Well, that's good in theory, but as you say, my first day on the job, I remember looking around and there were only 2 cottages being used and we have 10 cottages on the campus, and I was thinking to myself, just for a brief second there's doubt kind of creeped in, and I said, now I've left everything I know, I've given up a good job to come here, and what if it don't work out? But it was just for a brief second, because I think if you believe that you are doing the right thing, if you put yourself what you feel like in the right position, and if you believe in God, and I do, and I felt like God had led me there, then He will take care of those things. But the reality did set in the first few weeks I was there. It was so different. Now, Mary Grand Nursing Center is the second largest nursing center in the state of North Carolina. We had over 100 employees there, 200 residents, so it was constantly moving. So when I first got there, it was sort of like, you know, we've got 14 children. I think we had 13 staff. And I was like, Joy, have you made a mistake? But JW, I can tell you, if someone's out there making a career change, you have to look at the big picture. And I realized if I can put this in place, this in place, and this in place, we will start getting children here again. And I had to really start working. I need to go out and visit social services. I need to go out and visit Tar Heel Challenge. I need to go out and visit juvenile detention and let them know we're here. We've got a program. In fact, I remember I went to Dunn to get a license plate for one of the cars we had, and the lady looked at me and looked back down, and finally she said, I thought they had closed that place. This was my second day on the job. So I knew my work was cut out for me. But again, if you believe in what you're doing and you have a clear-cut plan, stick with your plan and believe in the man upstairs, especially if you work in ministry, and he'll take care of it.
So with that, Joey, the next thing I want to ask you is how did you, and because you've seen, in my opinion, a radical change in not only your job, but in what people see and what their expectation is from Falcon's Children's Home. How do you maintain and how do you enhance the vision, and to your point, make sure people know that it's there, make sure that they're aware of what services you offer? Obviously social media, we all talked about that, but at some point in time that's a leadership issue. Kind of speak to that, because even today, and of course, you know, you and I have crossed paths in civic clubs and different places, it's so important for folks to understand this is here. And as you just pointed out, even if folks know that Falcon's Children's Home is there, they might not have recognized that it's the second largest in the state in the functionality of it. So speak to that a little bit.
Well, I tell people now that in some ways my job is more difficult now than it was when I first got there. And when I first got there, when you're building something, you've got that momentum going. But now we have gone from being a campus of 14 children to almost 80 children. We've gone from being a children's home in Falcon. We have another children's home in South Carolina called Turbyville Children's Home. We started our own private Christian school about 12 years ago. We started licensing foster homes. We have about 30 foster homes under our umbrella now. We have a mothers and babies program. We have a maternity home. So I say all that not bragging. I'm saying, but now maintaining that is some ways more difficult than building it up. But you're right, I have to make sure that I give a lot of attention to keeping our name out there and keeping what's going in front of us. Social media is a very big part. In fact, we just hired someone to do social media for us for part-time, but to work on that only for social media. But I have to also make sure that I allow the people who use our services to understand what we're doing, and so they'll understand we've got a mothers and babies program, we have a maternity home, we have foster homes, we have counseling on campus, we have a school. So it is a constant concentration on our part to make sure we're getting out in front of people. I did one of these seminars a few weeks ago, one of these shows for PwC in Fayetteville. So a lot of what I do now is marketing, make sure we keep ourselves in front of the audience, but also let the community know what we're doing. So a lot of ways we go about doing that is through word of mouth and getting the word out, but also making sure we're a part of what's going on in the community, whether it be Clinton, Fayetteville, or Dunn. Those are 3 areas we serve for the most part at Falcon. And that's why I appreciate you so much allowing me to do that on this program. But we do have to have a concentrated plan and effort now to make sure that we let the public know what we're doing. We're not just a residential children's home anymore. We're not just a campus of about 20 students. We offer a school, we offer counseling, we offer a transitional living program for older students to learn to live on their own. There's a whole wide array of different ministries that we have, and so we have to make sure that we, every time at the first of the year, we sit down to plan and organize how we're going to get the word out this year, what we're doing. The other thing real quickly is I must also make sure I stay flexible to stay what is affecting young people now. What can I do to enhance? In other words, I can't be satisfied where we are. I surely could be. I mean, we got enough going on. But beginning in March, we're going to put up a whole new facility just for kids caught up in sexual trafficking. And we'll be doing that through an association with Baptist Children's Home. And again, it's a real big need. So when I first got to Falcon Children's Home, there was two things. Always put the children first. And be humble. Those are the two things I live by. It's not about me. I could leave tomorrow, someone else will do it. But as long as I stay humble, and sometimes when you hear about the growth and people say you're doing this and that, don't let it go to your head. It's not about me. So I always try to make sure, listen, if anybody else could do this job I'm doing, I'm just privileged to be here. But the second thing is, it's all about the children. In other words, does it benefit the children for what we're going to do? Kids caught up in sexual trafficking is a major thing occurring. There's a lot of sexual trafficking in Cumberland County right now. So we're going to start a home just for those kids caught up in sexual trafficking.
We're going to, when we come back from this break, we're going to kind of get into weeds, as it were, a bit to talk about Falcon's Children's Home. But you mentioned the human trafficking, sexual trafficking, those kinds of things. It's become a real big deal, and I want to kind of move into that area. But before we get into that, I want to kind of touch a bit on the components, should I say, of how Falcon is made up, the various kinds of focuses that you have there. And also, as we go to break, I would challenge folks to stay with us as we come back and we get into weeds on this, and so they'll know how to contact you and so they'll know how to help. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. We're talking with Joy Leggett. The name is Falcon's Children's Home. It's up to you, it's up to everybody to support. We'll be back in a moment.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Thanks for being with us this morning. J.W. Simmons, your host. The name of the show is We Should Know. Our guest this morning is Joey Leggett, CEO of Falcon's Children's Home. Joey, I want to get right to it. There's so much going on, and as we talked about in the first segment, this is an evolving situation at Falcon's Children's Home. As CEO, it has evolved and grown in capacity and number of people. I guess you could say that's both good, and folks could look at it and say, well, it's sad, because that just means that many children do not have homes. They do not have a place to live. But it continues to grow. And one of the things I want to pick up on as we segue into a further discussion is that you pointed out that Falcon is where children comes first. That's a unique situation for that child that has been displaced for whatever reason from a family, because clearly the child didn't come first, and now that child is in your sight, in your environment. And one of the components of that is residential care. What does residential care look like, as best you can describe, through the eyes of the child, and what do you want it to be as CEO, as representing Falcon's Children's Home? That's
a very good question. And I always do an exercise with our employees at Falcon, and I tell them to close their eyes and imagine that you're coming home from school on a school bus, and you know that your family's had some difficulties. It could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be abuse, neglect, various different types of things. And you pull up and there's a county car sitting in your front yard, and they say, you're going with us today. We're removing you from the home. Maybe not quite those words, but the scenario is pretty accurate. And so they'll put the child in the car and take them sometimes from Fayetteville, sometimes from Clinton, sometimes from Dunn or Pender County, whatever area, and take them to this strange place called Falcon Children's Home. And you pull up there and there's this large campus, and you go from being in a home with maybe a brother or sister, and again, though you know there's things going on in that house that probably weren't accurate for their age to understand that. There's maybe nights you went to bed hungry or fearful of what made someone came in your room and inappropriately touch you or hurt you. Still, that's what you know. And we're always comfortable with what we know. And I tell my staff, again, keep your eyes closed and think about this, that you're this child and you pull up this huge campus in the middle of nowhere. And then you go in and you meet a social worker and an admissions coordinator, and they sign you in and they take you to a cottage. And all of a sudden you've got 7 or 8 brothers and sisters that you don't even know that's not part of your family. Sometimes 4 or 5, depends on the cottage. And you meet these house parents that they will tell you will be like your parents for the time being. So it's a traumatic experience, and so we try to do everything we can to lessen that experience. And then I'll tell them, open your eyes now and look around and look at this campus and look at all that we have here. But still, all of that does not fill that void of what it's like to be taken from a home. Now, they're not always that type of situations, but there are some that are at least 30, 40% are like that. Many times the children don't know they're being taken away from their parents, don't know that social services has been working on this case for many, many weeks or months. And so they come into this strange environment. So it's our mandate, I feel like, to let these children know that, hey, we're here to take care of you till you go back home. We are a safe place. And I try to make sure, even as busy as I am, that I spend time speaking to the children. And to me, the most satisfying part of my job is when a child says, Mr. Leggett, I want you to see my report card. Mr. Leggett, can I do this? Mr. Leggett, because we've established, and I tell them we're supposed to be seen as that fill-in parent, if you would. But we need to let them know we're not your parents. We're not taking a place for your parents, because they don't want to hear that. But we're going to make you feel safe while you're here. And I tell people it takes about 7 touches to change the life of a child, and I feel like maybe I'm one of those touches, even though as busy as I am, and I'm not saying sacrifice, I'm saying, but that's what I'm there for. When I say I put children first, and I'll give an example. I had a board meeting one day, and the bishops were down from Oklahoma and other parts of the country, as well as businessmen on this board meeting, and I had to run make copies. And I was walking past this office, and there was a young girl there crying. She had just got there 2 days ago. And somebody said, Mr. Lake, she wants to talk to you. I said, I ain't got time right now. I've got a board meeting I got to get to. These are the guys that I'm working for. But right then I felt like God spoke to my heart and said, but you're here for the children. And so I went back and spoke to her. So I'm just saying that we have to preach what we say. We have to live what we say. We can't not preach what we say. We have to live what we say. And so those are experiences these kids, me and you've probably never been through a situation like that, or anyone who's listening to this maybe hasn't been through a situation like that, but many kids have. So I tell our staff it's incumbent upon us to make sure we provide a safe environment, communicate to them what's going on, because they feel like they're in the dark, that they've just taken away from their home the night before. We need to make sure we stay up with. So we have counselors, we have full-time counselors on the campus, we have social workers on the campus, we have school teachers on the campus, we have house parents on the campus, we have a recreation director on the campus, we have office staff on the campus, we have a dietary staff, full-time dietary staff. We tell them to treat it like they're coming for lunch for a meal at home. It takes a lot of concentrated effort to make sure we can try to lessen the impact that has on a child.
I like the way you described exactly what happened, and as folks are listening to us today, I would ask everybody to kind of put your mind in that world, the world that you just described, that you are arriving at that place, and you find yourself there with those cottages, those, I would say, small representation of a home, right. And these people that are children. Give us an idea, Joey, when you look at the number of people you have there now, is there an average age that you see coming in? You know, as a grandfather, I've got them all ages, so I start looking at it. I look at children now even different than I did when I was a father, but as a grandfather, it's even, for some reason, there's even more of a draw for me to say, everybody, you need to know what's going on at Falcon. You need to know the sadness that's behind it, but also you need to know that this is a resource. And I want to try to get that out. So when we're looking at that, give us an idea at the same time what people out there need to know. What do you need, I guess, as an envoy, as an intermediary, as a representation of what we would hope normality in society is. There is a safeguard there is this chance that a person can find safety.
Yeah, it's very important that we create that environment. As far as the first question you asked about the age, back in about 2000, the state said they wanted children 12 and under placed in foster homes. And that was part of the reason the census went down slow at Falcon. They were still trying to do things the old way, getting kids at a young age. They were not putting kids there anymore under the ages of 12. So when we got there, we said we must change our programs to be formatted more toward teenagers. And I told our staff then, I said, you know, really, it's in some ways it's even more important for us to be on our spot now getting these children treated because, or giving them a home, is because if they come to us as teenagers, chances are they've been through 3 or 4 placements already. And we may be the last place that can really make a difference in their life. So you have to look at that. They're going into adulthood. We may be the last stop they have where we can really have a positive effect upon them and prepare them to be the man and woman they need to be productive citizens in North Carolina or wherever they're going. But so most of our kids now are ages 12 and up. We're a campus of teenagers. We have recently seen a surge of younger kids coming in. I think it's because of COVID-19. A lot of foster homes aren't taking the younger kids right now because of the fear of COVID-19. A lot of our foster homes aren't taking younger kids. So we have got some younger kids more recently of ages of 8 to, about 5 to 8 or 9. But for the most part, most of our kids are teenagers. We also have a mothers and babies program, so we have some teen mothers with babies. That was a program we started when we got there. Took a lot of flack for that. Someone said you were rewarding these girls for getting pregnant. I said, I don't think anyone's going to get pregnant so they can be at Falcon Children's Home. Things happen. It's us helping the child raise the child, helping them find a job, helping them through parenting classes, nutritional classes. So as far as the community understanding what we're doing is sort of being an envoy for what we're doing, if you know someone out there that needs our services. Now, we don't get payment for every child that comes there. We do get some state board rates. But I'm not going to turn a child away because of money, and I never would. But let social services know, or call Falcon Children's Home. We have some situations where parents are trying to raise their children, or grandparents, I'm sorry, and they're just not able because of age or different situations, or maybe the child's running away, truancy and those kind of things. We're there to help. We are not in any way trying to keep children there forever and ever. We're there to just fill in that void, fill in that gap. And where the public can help us is just be aware and then come visit us at Falcon Children's Home. Come see what we're doing. We're proud of what we're doing. I really believe we're making a difference. Now, there is legislation coming down starting in the fall of 2021 where they're going to start wanting children placed in foster homes, not in group homes, unless they're over 18 years of age, unless they're caught in sexual trafficking, or unless they're mothers and babies. Now, they can still be placed in group homes, but the federal government will not reimburse anymore for kids if they don't meet those 3 criteria to be in group homes. We're kind of upset about that. It was legislation that was snuck in at the midnight hour to the budget back about 3 years ago, but it is a law now. However, we know that if there were foster homes, there would be no children's homes. There were enough foster homes. When they take a child to place them into care, the first thing they do is they look for a relative, and if they can't find a relative, they'll look for a friend. If they can't find a friend, they look for a foster home. We're the last alternative anyway. Then they look for a group home. And with that scenario, we still have grown from 14 children to almost 80 children. So that shows you the need out there. So they can make legislation if they want to, and they certainly have, but we feel like the need's still going to be there. It may reduce our number some. I wish no child had to be at Falcon Children's Home. I'd come back and try to get a job with JW or working with Star Telephone or something. But as long as there are children who need Falcon Children's Home, I want the community to know we're going to be there and we're going to serve them as best we can.
And I think that when you just hit a key point too is that Falcon Children's Home is not a government entity. Mm-hmm. It has to follow certain government regulations. So you don't have a budget that you're given by state or federal to operate. So you have to depend a lot on donations and charitable people and churches and others. If somebody's out there listening, we're going to mention this a couple of times in the show. So yes, there is this idea that I want folks to be able to, if they feel it in their heart, to make a donation to Falcon Children's Home. So we're going to mention it several times. Can they just call a certain number?
They can. They can call 910-980-1065, or then go to falconchildrenshome.com. Or if they want to be part of the Harvest Train giving we have going on in the next couple of months, they can go to harvesttrain.com. And they can give through that way. We also have PayPal. They can also mail it to us at P.O. Box 39, Falcon, North Carolina, 28342. And I will say this, JW, and I just want to thank you for allowing me to speak on this program. Sampson County has really stepped up at Falcon.
You come out to replace a bad sensor, and that adds a 5-year commitment to my contract, and you don't tell me? Here's your sign.
Switch to the sign that's keeping homes secure and customers happy all over the area. Security from Star Communications. We pride ourselves on fair pricing and quick, friendly service every time.
Somebody trying to break into this place?
Security from Star Communications.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on the air. Want to remind you our email address is weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. That's weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. Always look forward to hearing your comments, suggestions for shows, particularly comments about shows we've had on. Today we're talking with Joey Leggett with Falcon's Children's Home. Joey, we went to break, and as we went to break, we were talking about the whole intake process, what children saw when they came to Falcon's Children's Home. There's so much goes on there. I want to make our listeners and viewers understand that we cannot in one show, even though we got 50 minutes, cover everything. So some of the things that we're touching on is key highlights. So as we look at that, I want to segue into another area that you guys are involved in. We've talked about residential, but Tuberville Children's Home. How did Falcon's Children's Home end up with this Tuberville Children's Home? How did that happen? And kind of just give us a little background, because that's an important part of Falcon as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and if you remember earlier, I said I always put children first. The Joey Leggett side of me did not want to tackle Tuberville Children's Home. We have our chairman of our board is from South Carolina. He's about 17 miles from the Tuberville Children's Home. And I was at a conference in Florida, and he was there and said, Joey, they're trying to sell the children's home in Tuberville, South Carolina. Would you be interested in looking at it? I think it could be a good thing if we could take over that children's home or buy it. And sometimes as we do, I said, well, I'll stop by and look at it. But in the back of my mind, I don't have time for Tuberville Children's Home. But again, it was, I went to meet with the directors at that time. It was owned and operated by the South Carolina Free Will Baptist Association. Great people, and they just were ready to get out of the business. They were having some difficulties getting children, much like Falcon was many years ago. And so I went and met with the gentlemen down there that were on the board, and they said, listen, we just want a quality organization to take this over. We still believe what our children's home can be helpful to the children of South Carolina. But JW, this is the truth, I left there that day thinking I'm just going to go back and give a report and say we just don't need to do this. But I stopped to get gas at a gas station, and on the way back off I-95, and I was pumping gas, and I felt like the Lord spoke to me. Now, I'm not saying the Lord speaks to me. I'm not on the level that you are and other people, but I feel like He impressed upon me.
I need Him to speak to me more often, trust me.
But how many children do you have at the North Carolina Children's Home at Falcon from South Carolina? And we had 2 at that time. And I remember answering them and said, well, 2. And the guy beside me pumping gas said, sir, what did you say? I said, gas is $2 a gallon, get all you can get. But anyway, I don't think I was crazy. Yeah. But and then it struck my mind that we, South Carolina's a big supporter of Falcon Children's Home. The South Carolina Pentecostal Holiness denomination down there, we have 2 in South Carolina that are big supporters of Falcon Children's Home. And I said, we've been taking their money to basically take care of children in North Carolina. If this is a unique opportunity for us to help more children, remember what I said? Children. It's about children. If it helps children, and I truly put them first. And so we've now had that facility open 4 years. It was pretty much full. It's a smaller facility. It's fully staffed. It's paying its way. And the Free Will Baptist Association of South Carolina is very excited we took it over because we're partnering with them. Their headquarters is right next to the campus of Tuberville Children's Home. And the support they get from the South Carolina churches is just amazing in the community as a whole. So again, when I say my 2 things I do is be humble and put children first, I live by that. And so I really felt like this is an opportunity for us to serve more children. So that's how it came about. So they have their own little harvest train program like we have. They have it in the summer. And it's really, we've got a great director down there, and we're just really excited about what they're doing in the state of South Carolina.
So that's under the same umbrella as Falcon's Children's Home, even though it is a in a separate in a different state and has its own name, but it's still under the
Right.
Administrative umbrella of Falcon's Children's Home.
Right. The parent organization is still Falcon Children's Home and Family Services.
Are you able to offer as many varied services there as you do in Falcon here in this area?
No, we're not. First of all, they don't have the same amount of children that we have. However, we are working to offer more services. As far as the school there, they're right next door to one of the best county school systems in the state of South Carolina. In fact, people move their children in to go to Clarendon County School System. So we don't want to take our kids out of that school. They work with us. They're very involved in our kids there. We walk across one block to get to the school, so it's right there. So we're not going to ever probably offer a school down there, but we are going to start licensing foster homes in South Carolina. That's where we want to go next. And we do offer our counseling services down there. And they do have a transitional living program. We eventually want to enhance and have a mothers and babies program there. So all the things we're doing at Falcon, we will try to slowly introduce there, but we need to kind of get the foundational basis set first, the residential side. And I feel like we've done that, so we do have a plan in the next 4 to 5 years to get a mothers and babies program, start licensing foster homes, and to even enhance our transitional living program there.
One of the things that I found interesting too is when I look at Falcon's Children's Home, there's a part of that that's called Royal Home Ministries. That story's always been interesting to me. Talk about that for a minute. Tell us how that evolved, what challenges you saw. Was that something you expected to get involved with?
I'll be honest with you, I didn't know I was involved with Royal Home when I took the job. I thought I was like a consultant more or less, and then I was told, no, you're actually over the Royal Home Ministries, which was started here in Sampson County, in Salemburg, by a pastor who used to pastor the Clinton Pentecostal Holiness Church, Marvin Whitfield. He got assigned to a church in Fayetteville called Person Street at that time. I think it's called Baywood, but it's over there on Person Street. And every morning he'd go past an abortion clinic on his way to work at the church there in Fayetteville, and it bothered him. And he said he felt like we should start what we call an alternative to abortion ministry. It was called ATM to start with. And so he began that ministry out of a house there in Salemburg, right across the street from the Justice Academy. And so when I got here, it was struggling some. Marvin had retired from the ministry at that point in time. And I remember the bishop wanted me to go down and look at it and see what we could do. And so we tried to put some more efforts in getting the word out. But what we found out was as times have changed. And that's where whenever you're working in this genre of what we're doing here with children, you have to make sure you're staying up with what's going on. In other words, when they first started Royal Home Ministries or Alternative to Abortion Ministries, basically consisted of people who maybe they were church girls or someone in the community who got pregnant, and they'd kind of send them away for a little while for them to get help. But now when you have television programs called 16 and Pregnant, and right now there's just not discouraged about, or people don't look down upon like they used to. I don't know if that's good or bad. So there was not that need to send off what we would say were the good girls again. So we need to redevelop that ministry and say we need to start serving the kind of girls we're serving at, or the kind of students we're serving at Falcon Children's Home. In other words, some of those girls that are coming from broken homes, some of those girls who are on the other side of the tracks, who have got pregnant, they have no resources. Now, they have always done that, don't get me wrong, but I think we were catered more to, hey, if someone gets pregnant and they choose to have that baby, which is a great thing. To me, these mothers are heroes because people do abortion for a lot less than what they could do it for as far as what it's costing them, but they're determined to raise their child. But we had to kind of refocus that ministry, say, hey, we need to let this ministry start working with girls that perhaps are already in DSS custody. So we started doing that, the numbers started picking back up. And so we felt a need, so it's been about 7 years ago now, we built a whole new campus across the road from Falcon Children's Home called Royal Home Campus. We also changed the name from Alternative to Abortion Ministries to Royal Home because it was the royal family that donated the home to us in Salemburg, and so we wanted to keep that name.
That's the legacy tradition.
The legacy tradition, that's right. We want to keep that, and then we want the kids to know they're like royalty. We're treating these mothers have chose to give life to their babies. These babies have a wonderful future, so it's a royalty aspect. Plus the royal family that gave the home in Salemburg meant a lot to us. We wanted to keep that going. And so we built a whole new campus in Falcon, $2.5 million campus. We now have a training center there. We have a cottage for mothers and babies, a cottage for pregnant girls, and so it's really working well. Our numbers are a little bit down. With COVID-19, a lot of the people that refer to us are school counselors or school social workers, and with kids not going to school with the virtual school, some of those reports are not coming in, and we're not getting the referrals like we usually do. But we really feel like we've got that ministry set up at a wonderful, wonderful location in Falcon. We hated to leave Salemburg, but we needed a big, more contemporary, up-to-date type of building with a training center and all those sort of things. And so we are excited about where that ministry is going.
When you look at what's happened with Royal, even looking back just 1992, which don't really seem like a long time ago, but really it was, and you move forward, do you see a statistical increase in number of unwed mothers, or is it pretty much stayed the same? And what kind of education, or should we do, or what kind of education are we doing to kind of, and I don't know whether this is probably not a good term, but to kind of help teach people more about self-worth, to not find themselves in that position?
Yeah, and that's always been sort of the rub, is some people feel like that are we promoting girls who are getting pregnant by having this ministry? No, we're not. We do training with them we don't want to go out and get pregnant again when they leave us. But the schools are addressing this. But statistically, we have seen probably more teen pregnancies, but less being referred to services that we offer. Again, because there's been a change in society, how they look upon that. And again, that could be good or bad, and I'm not here to judge on that. But there has to. We also make part of our program is educating on behaviors and sometimes of self-worth. But we have some tragic situations. We have situations where girls were actually raped and got pregnant, decided to keep their baby, or it was an inappropriate relationship. So it's not always a situation where it was a relationship they were in with someone they loved or they thought they loved. Sometimes it's tragic situations, and that's what we just want to be there, because we feel like if that mother who is a teenager, we've had mothers as young as 13 years old with a pregnancy come to us. We're helping a child raise a child, but we're trying to teach them. We're hoping that when they come to us, we can teach them, what led to that behavior. Maybe it was low self-esteem. Maybe it was them trying to fit in. Maybe it was socioeconomic type of situation. So they go to our schools so they can get their education. We help them get a job when they leave. We put them through parenting classes, nutritional classes, and we try our best to prepare them to be successful when they leave there.
We're going to take a break. It seems like the breaks come fast, but we're going to take a break and we'll be back in a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Joey Leggett. We're talking about the various aspects of Falcon's Children's Home, the areas of life that Falcon touches that many people probably maybe are not aware of. Some folks listening to the show may have been part of that. We look forward to seeing you again in just a moment. Call a friend. Stay tuned.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us today. We're talking with Joey Leggett at Falcon's Children's Home. We've got a lot of stuff we've talked about. We've got a plate full to try to get to you in this last segment. Joey, thank you for being with us. It seems like when I have you on, we have so much stuff we want to cover. There's so many things happen, so many challenges. There are 3 areas I want to touch quickly so we can get into some of the things that's going to be happening in the coming weeks at Falcon's Children's Home here at the end of 2020. But one of them is family foster care. The other is the New Life Christian Adoption Program and Falcon Children Academy. The foster care program is a program that you guys are actually involved in the licensing of people to have a home that's identified as a foster care home. Give us the highlights of that, if you can. We could talk about that for a whole show, but I've got so much I want to try to cover today. So.
Well, first of all, that's the trend with child care now. They do want foster homes over group homes. So that kind of started us down that direction. But then we really realized that we want to get involved in that arena also, because we're not able to serve the younger kids because they're putting younger kids in foster homes. So we want to start licensing foster homes. So we actually license foster homes under the umbrella of Falcon Children's Home. And let me say this, a good foster family, they're heroes of mine. And there are a lot of good foster families out there. That's a family deciding they're going to bring a child into their home. And really, if every Christian couple, or at least half the Christian couples in America would decide to be foster parents, you wouldn't need Falcon Children's Home per se. Now, the foster parents generally, as a rule, because they usually have small children of their own, or maybe they're just starting out, they don't generally want the older teenagers. So usually they want kids 8 and under, somewhere in that range. But right now, I think we have 25 foster homes. We really want to have 80 within 2 years. We want to be able to serve those families, those smaller children, and we do the training. You come to Falcon, do the training. We check up on you. You're licensed by the state, but we have licensed by the state to license foster homes. So the state will come out and make sure you are abiding by the rules and the statutes set down by the state of North Carolina, but we're actually ones who do the supervision and report to the state. We pay the foster parents, we train the foster parents, we have social workers assigned to go work with the foster parents. It's a very exciting program. I really believe in the future we'll have more kids in the foster home side of the program than we have on the residential side of the program at Falcon Children's Home.
And you guys, by being in that position, you also monitor that, and it has to meet that standard that you've set forth, which is the child comes first.
That's right, the child comes first.
Which I think is a great mantra to move forward with, especially with what you do.
And, and a lot of people say they'd rather work for an organization like us. Nothing's wrong working with the state, but there'll be that closeness, that one-on-one. Plus, we're a Christian organization, so we're going to be for them having devotion in their homes, them taking the kids to church. So there's a lot of positives to that. But yes, we also denote to them the same thing we do to our staff on the residential side. Make the child come first. Make sure this child feels safe, protected, and in a secure environment.
Let's talk about New Life Christian adoptions. That's another thing that seems to be I don't know, kind of an obvious thing. If there was folks out there that would apply for and go through the adoption process, that tends to be a easy solution, but I'm sure there's not that many people interested in it.
Again, most people who adopt want a baby, and there's not a lot of babies out there to be had. So our adoption agency is not as robust as perhaps we'd want it to be for that reason. But what we're trying to do now is gear our adoption services more to our older kids because it's hard for them to find an adoptive family. Now, we still have adoptions with babies and so forth, and we still accept families for that. But the adoption agency was started with the concept that the babies that will be born at the maternity home, the royal home, could possibly be adopted out. But that is considered a conflict of interest, so we're not allowed to do that. So then we changed the purpose of the adoption agency now to say, for these hard to place kids, can we find an adoptive family for them? And we feel like that's a real need. Again, putting the child first. We feel like every child should have a family. So we want to try to find those children families. There's a big push by that from the state and the federal government, and so we want to be a part of that. Of course, we feel like every child should have a Christian family, and so we really want to. If you're a family who wants to adopt, contact us at royalhome.com or falconchildrenshome.com. Ask to speak to our adoption worker and get on the list. There is some cost involved with that because we're a private adoption agency, but our costs are far much less than most adoption agencies that are out there serving the public.
The other thing I want to touch on too is Falcon Christian Academy. That's something I'm not going to say is relatively new, but something that you're into that requires a lot of work and a lot of regulation involved in that as well.
Yeah, a lot of the kids that come to us after 3 or 4 placements. A lot of them are getting behind in school. For example, we're in Cumberland County. They go to the Cumberland County school system. Cape Fear High School was where I graduated from, a wonderful high school. But it's a large high school. So you've got a kid who's come to us after being placed maybe in Forsyth County. He went to school there. He goes to Raleigh, goes to Wake. He goes all these different places. So when he gets to us, they kind of sometimes get lost in the numbers. And I tell our staff, if a kid leaves us without at least a high school diploma, we have failed that kid. So we were starting to have some troubles. And then we had a young lady who came to us, and I will never forget it. She told me one day she hated me. She said, "I hate you, Mr. Leggett." And I can't believe that. I'm a wonderful guy. I thought, JW, but I just picked it.
Who would ever believe that?
Yeah, I would believe that, but probably a lot of people. But she said, "I just hate you, Mr. Leggett." Well, she had an experience and got saved during her time there. And she came to us, "Mr. Leggett, I just can't go back to public schools because I run with this crowd and that crowd." And something struck me again when I say this. People, I know it's simplistic. What's best for the child? So I said, are we doing best by our children by putting them back in the system where we know they're going to, if they ran with a gang before, they're going to run with a gang again. If they're 2 grades behind, they're going to fall another grade behind. Mm-hmm. Nothing's wrong with the public school system. Don't get me wrong. I applaud the public school system. But for our kids, there's so much drama in their life and trauma they bring with them. So we pay for her to go to a private school. And imagine my excitement when she graduated top of her class and gave the baccalaureate address at the graduation. And imagine my excitement when she went to college. And I realized then that private school helped her because they could focus on her one-on-one. It was a smaller class setting. It was a Christian school. So we started our own private school called Falcon Christian Academy. Last year we had 16 graduates, 12 were in college this fall or technical school or trade school. So it's one of the best programs we started. Now, we fund that out of our own funds. It costs me about $600,000 a year. We don't get tuition. We do get some kids who get the Opportunity Scholarship. Our goal is to eventually let it become a charter school, but still keep our Christian precepts and principles in place. But to me, it's one of the programs that helps, again, if it helps the child. That allows us to say, let's say little Johnny goes to court that day and he thinks he's going home. But they'll call back and say that he's not going home. His mom and daddy's not done what they should do to get him back home. So we're able to have a counselor waiting for him when he gets back to school that day. We're able to hone in on him. And it allows us to really focus on him and to create that connectivity, lets them know we're there for you, we care for you. Rather than going back to a big public school where I already felt like there was another number because there's a new kid there, we have a smaller setting. And the athletics, a lot of our kids get to play sports and they have never played sports before because we have such a small school. We have 90 students in our school right now. But with this COVID-19, we've had a lot of the community kids wanting to come, so we have increased our community. We do allow community kids to come to our school. And eventually, I believe that we'll have well over 150 students in our school at some point.
So this is part of the world of Falcon's Children's Home that's going to be growing, and the expectation will continue to grow. In fact, a lot of private schools are seeing growth.
They are, and we have a good quality school. I know we had a kid that moved here from Davidson County to go to the Children's Home, and he wanted to go, his mother wanted him to go to public school, so we had the public school get on the phone with us, Cape Fear High School. And they were touting our school. They said, listen, he can come to Cape Fear, but he's going to get everything he needs right there at Falcon. They run a quality program. And that's what we want it to be, is we're not taking away from the county. We're just trying to enhance the child's life that's there with us because we know we deal with them on a day-to-day basis. We know what they're going through. It allows us to focus in on that child and make sure they graduate. We have online classes, too. We have accelerant classes, I forget what the word is, but anyway, they can get a lot of make up some of the credits they're behind with an online course to get them caught up in that. And our principal, he was the former president of Emmanuel College, and he retired and came to work with us and run our school and does a wonderful job with it.
I want to, the last few minutes we got here, I want to talk about the importance of people and their contribution and how they can help. This time of the year, the holiday season, you do a lot of events. A lot of these events now are going to be virtual. Tell us how folks can get involved. That number is 910-980-1065. We'll take the last couple of minutes and cover all that.
Well, COVID-19, this has been a different year. 2020 has been a different year. So we always normally have a harvest train celebration where the kids do a program and say thank you. We have a big parade that morning. People come and bring stuff to the kids, give out candy to the kids. And we usually raise almost $300,000 that year, which really funds our school. And then we get a lot of commodities to help us throughout the year, trash bags, canned goods, anything that you can use at your house, we can sure use at Falcon Children's Home. So this year we decided, since we can't have the Harvest Train program because of COVID, since we can't have the parade because of COVID, what can we do? So on November the 19th, 20th, and 21st, from 5:30 to 9:30 on the campus of Falcon, we're having what we call All Is Bright Christmas lights. So please bring, all we ask is you bring a canned good, bring something, trash bags, paper towels, anything that can help us, toilet paper, those things that help us get through the year. Just bring one. You don't have to bring anything. Come, if you don't bring anything at all, just come. But we're going to decorate our campus like a Christmas wonderland. South River Electric is working with us to enhance the campus. Meta Lights is giving us some of their lights to help our campus because they're not going to be open this year. So we're really excited about it. Now, the only ones who aren't excited about it is our maintenance guys that are working around the clock to get this campus ready.
Is this going to be like a drive-through?
A drive-through. You come to a certain point. We'll have a starting point. We'll give you a map. We'll direct you how to go through. You'll get to see the campus, ride through the campus. The kids will be out. They won't be necessarily out shaking hands and all that because of COVID, but you'll see them on the campus.
Sure.
They're going to be watching Christmas movies off the side of a big building. It's just going to be a wonderful, wonderful, I'm just telling you, I've been working on it yesterday and leading up to this meeting today. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful Christmas celebration. It's going to be all those bright Christmas lights. And then when you come through, we got an open warehouse where you can drive through. Our guys will help unload whatever you bring. We'll give you a memento for being there, and then we'll say thank you for coming. It'll probably take about 15, 20 minutes. But again, we'd love for you to be a part of that. If you want to just come see the campus, you don't have to bring a thing. But if you want to bring something to Falcon Children's Home, you can. There will be a box up at the end of the tour if you want to make a monetary donation. donation, or you can make a monetary donation at falconchildrenshome.com or harvesttrain.com. But we would love to see you there. And then on Tuesday, instead of our Harvest Train program this year, we're going to do a virtual program. We're going to host it live, but we're showing one of our favorite programs from the past in the year 2013 entitled The Two Trees.
Joey, thank you for being with us. Ladies and gentlemen, We Should Know has brought you a program today that we hope has touched your heart a bit. We hope that you'll think about calling 910-980-1065. It's the time of the year that when you think about those gifts and the blessings you have and you want to share, this is an organization that we highly recommend that you could share with. Stay tuned. We look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.